What makes a person a criminal? Despite the efforts of Lombroso, Kretschmer, Huron, and Sheldon, any of them could find a determinate biological or morphological relation between the serial killers due to the weakness of their studies results. That's why the research was focused on the genetic field, but without abandoning them completely. The human karyotype is made up of 46 chromosomes, 22 identical pairs, and the sexual one, XX for women and XY for men. Through multiple studies, Joanna, 2013, points out that one of the first anomalies with relevance to criminal behavior is the emergence of a supplemental type X chromosome, which leads to the formula 47XXY, an anomaly which was called the Klippfelter syndrome. It affects the testicular growth, which reduces the testosterone production. Should the patient to have this syndrome, it might cause muscular mass, corporal and facial hair reduction, and enlarging of breast tissue. Looking up for mental features from serial killers, it was identified the emotional affective instability. Joanna 2013 firmly states that some of the main reasons for an individual to acquire this lack of love when childhood is caused by the failure to comply with social demands, causing a sort of rejection in the affliction groups, like school or the family, influencing in the child's mind to feel underestimated. Another reason could be the absence of an appropriate family structure because of the lack of interest in raising the child, as a consequence of the loss of a parent due to death, divorce, or abandonment, the concern of providing a quality education due to low socioeconomic and cultural levels, alcoholism problems, and so on.
John Wick was born on March 17, 1948 in Chicago. He died on May 10, 1944. He was raised with an abusive alcoholic father and a passive mother. He was very close to his sister and to his mother that called him Johnny Grace. He dropped out of high school after his senior year and lost contact with his family. He went to get a job and lied about his age in Las Vegas as an ambulance driver in Palm Antler Memorial Park. Even he got an eternal position as an assistant. He will move the compress such as material from the hospital to the funeral home. He was allowed to sleep at night in the presumes as a fact would consider suggesting the prophilia when his crimes were discovered years later. His last unit, the director becomes suspicious and called the police on him one day. Grace was not identified as he left the city and went to Chicago with his savings. He enrolled eventually and graduated in business college in 1968. He will become involved in politics and being activist. He got this character. He created this character named Pogo the Clown, which he supported himself in his habitual wearing a costume for charity events and lead him to the nickname Killer Clown. He started with the young kid named Tommy Crumb, who was alleged killed by his self-defense. As soon as the murder co-worker named John, after many years of the murder, result that Grace was eventually fallen in this parallel 15 years ago of Robert Press. The police have obtained a search warrant into his house and they discover a powerful odor and numbers of items of the belonging of this missing kid. According to Grace, to the confession to the police, he will pick up some males from or male strippers that were in the 20s in Chicago bus stations or off the street. After those, he would take them home to his house, either promising sex or money, offering them a job or a construction company, simply grabbing them by the force or forcing them to his car with a gun point. Once they got back to his house, he would handcuff them or tie them against a way and intoxicate them with alcohol or knocking them over. He will torture them in various ways, such as using a fire poker and then dropping hot candle wax in their body, repeatedly drowning in his hot tub or placing them home. As he would announce he will urinate on his victims and will rape multiple times by killing them.
Responding to the question, what makes a criminal and what made John Wayne Gacy become one of the worst serial killers in the US? John Wayne had not any identified mental or physical illness from birth or genetically. Yet it is believed that it was on his own experiences as a child that impulsed him to these atrocities. As my teammate Edgar said, emotional affective instability in childhood is one of the mental features of serial killers. John comes from a family where the father wasn't abusive. He constantly belittled and beat by calling him a faggot or a sissy. Consequently, the boy's insecurities and distortion about his sexuality began here and grew over the years when a friend of his parents began abusing him at the age of 9. At this point, all of his life was full of violence and abuse. In 1968, he committed his first crime at his 26 years, sexually abusing against a 15-year-old boy. After this, he was evaluated with antisocial personality disorder. However, he only had 18 months in jail because of good behavior. Someone with antisocial personality disorder will typically be manipulative, deceitful, and reckless, and will not care for other people's feelings, as in Wayne's case. He even enjoyed killing. Seeing the blood rushing out of his body turned me on, Wayne said in one of his confessions. In conclusion, we can infer that a criminal is not born but made. As we all know, our personality and character is formed in childhood. Were he to have a bad childhood, he will probably grow up to be a bad adult. We must be careful with the education and the example we give to children around us, as well as take care of them and prevent any harm or abuse from happening to them. And if unfortunately it happens, address it in the best way to overcome it and not turn it into a trauma that drags into adulthood.